Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. So this is reality. It's the reality of economic privation and hopefully of people organizing to do something about it, programmatically breaking out of the existing party structures. Now, we got to say a bit more about World War I. We've tried to cover Ukraine and related issues. By the way, Yatsenyuk fell when the Svoboda fascist party and the Udar of the Poluka, right, of Klitschko quit. So there's something very smelly going on there, something rotten in the Ukrainian Rada. But now let's go back to World War I. The essential fact, as I have put forward, if you take a look at Tarpley.net, you will see a speech that I gave in 1995 to the Schiller Institute, and you'll see, once again, the essay that I wrote about the same time. Right now you can look at some of this in La France Conquise, available through Progressive Press of California, Progressive Press on the Internet. But for this you've got to know some French and German, although there's other parts are in English. Let's just try to sum it up. Edward VII is overwhelmingly the architect of World War I, even though he died 4 to 5 years before the war started. And this you can find out from an international selection of commentators. One of them is Émile Fleuron, who had been the foreign minister of France, a very important guy. Fleuron, former member of the Chamber of Deputies, former Minister of Foreign Affairs of France, the Quai d'Orsay, published at Garnier in 1906, La France Conquise, Edward VII and Clemenceau, and essentially his thesis is that what the English victories of Crécy and Agincourt were not able to do, break the spirit of France and reduce France to a puppet state of England back in the 100 Years' War. These are events in the 1400s. What could not be done by Crécy and Agincourt in those defeats has been done by Edward VII. We've also got this other essay here coming from a writer sympathetic to the German side, Reinhold Wagner, Wagner, the greatest criminal against humanity in the 20th century, King Edward VII of England. This is Berlin, 1914. And the idea in all of these, Edward the Encircler, the personal architect of the alliance system. Remember that what you've got to have to get World War I is, first of all, this alliance system, which means that any war becomes a general war. Any war involving Germany means an attack on France and then an attempt to finish the war against the Russians in the east. And then you need to have a trigger, and that's Sarajevo. So we've got to be able to show that Edward VII's networks, it means Great Britain, but not only, because it's an international network, are involved. Let me also point out that we have other important sources on this. There is an interesting pamphlet which has been pointed out by a few, not by the current crop of Anglo-Americans, but a guy called Delaisi, Delaisi, La Guerre qui Vient, that is translated in English, and it is, as the unavoidable war. We've also got the larger book by Charles Henry Norman, The Searchlight on the Causes of World War I. And we've got another interesting one. This is now another country speaking. This is Switzerland, and this is a study called Entente Freimaurerei, that is to say, the Freemasons of the Entente countries and what they did. And that's this is another German study, the Entente Freimaurerei. The Swiss one that I meant to reference is a guy called Adolf Bolliger, Bolliger. His book is called The World War and the Kingdom of God. This is a Protestant minister, but he's the former rector of Basel University. And the common denominator of all of these is the big emphasis on Edward VII. And I'll go through these as the weeks go by. Let's sample some of this stuff in just a second if we have time. But the idea is this: if you want to have this world war, you've got to have personnel. And Edward VII, the thing about Edward VII is he is the all-time champion of longevity as Prince of Wales, right? Prince Charles of today, the Prince of Wales, complains that Queen Elizabeth has been around, she's been on the throne since 1952, 1953. In the case of Edward VII, he had to wait for his eternal mother, right, who finally died in the beginning of the 1900s. Edward VII was Prince of Wales for 50 to 60 years, more than Charles, at least so far. He was, of course, the most active political operator of the House of Saxe-Coburg-Gotha, otherwise known as House of Windsor. And during this time, he spends most of his time networking. He also has to carry out all the ceremonial duties of the monarch because Queen Victoria is up in Balmoral with her Scottish helper, John Brown, and she's running the death cult around Prince Albert. The people involved, right? And we've gone through some of these, right? Sir Winston Churchill's father, Randolph, was a creature of Edward VII. Sir Neville Chamberlain's father, Joseph Chamberlain, creature of Edward VII. The father of Sir Edward Grey, British Foreign Minister, 1914. Grey's father, creature, horse administrator of Edward VII. Jackie Fisher of the Royal Navy, creature of Edward VII. But also Théophile Delcassé, French foreign minister, warmonger, and Izvolsky on the Russian side. But also people like Poincaré, Prime Minister of France, President of France. Clemenceau, the Prime Minister and Tiger of France. So these people are there. Another important element, the hysteria, the propaganda. And here, the group, the person that stands out is the individual variously known as Harmsworth and Northcliffe. So this is a demagogic press baron, lord of the yellow press in London, the Daily Mail, the London tabloids, this entire complex of hysteria and chauvinism. And this character, Harmsworth, was made a peer, right, brought into the House of Lords as a reward by Edward. So this is where the entire literature and hysteria about German invasions, Germany coming with the fleet, Germany coming with dirigibles, Germany coming with airplanes, all this other stuff coming forward. And it sets the tone for what we later see with Lord Beaverbrook in the 30s and 40s, Sir Robert Maxwell, Jan Ludwig Hoch, in the 70s and 80s, and Rupert Murdoch. Rupert Murdoch is nothing but the current occupant of that niche of mass imbecility which Edward had established. And then, of course, the alliances, right? The alliances with France. Out of those 50 to 60 years of Edward as Prince of Wales, we're going to find that he spends a lot of the time in France, and indeed, as king, spends a lot of the time at Biarritz, on the Riviera, in Paris, all this other stuff. And then also with Russia, and that this is due to his personal contacts with, among others, Izvolsky, starting quite a number of years in advance. So, this is the key to it. And unfortunately, most of the historiography cannot grasp this fact. It is all well and good to look at Milner and the round tables and the coefficients and all this stuff, but who are these people? They are stooges, operatives of King Edward VII. So this will be a theme for us for the coming months and indeed years, and therefore we'll see you next week on World Crisis Radio. Don't forget the anniversary of the Petersburg crater coming up on the 30th of July, that weekend. See you next week.